Welcome to the Agile Online Summit. I'm your host, Tom Henriksen. Today with us, we have a special guest. Nivarti is here to talk to us. And Nivarti, why don't you introduce yourself to the people here on the Agile Online Summit?
Hi everyone, this is Nivarti Jayaram. I'm based out of Bangalore in India, and I'm an ICF accredited coach and also a service veteran, having served close to 23 years in defense services, also an UN peacekeeper. So that's in short about me.
So you've been busy. You have a lot of different things you've done.
Yes, I've done quite a bit of things, and I'm doing quite a bit of things as well, Tom.
Excellent, excellent. Well, today you want to talk to us a little bit about unlearning. So I'll throw it over to you, Nivarti. You can kind of set the groundwork for us.
Yes, so now transformation is the name of the game in the industry, across the globe, right? So we are talking about digital transformation. We are also talking about agile transformation. We have DevOps transformation. We have cloud transformation. So everywhere it's all about transformation. And as part of transformation, we have people trying to learn new technologies, new frameworks, new processes, and it's a lot of learning that everyone goes through. What I noticed during my journey of transformation as well, having moved from a defense services to corporate and now into agile as a transformation program manager. So I've gone through transformations myself, and what I've seen is it's not just about learning new technologies. It's not just about learning new processes, new frameworks. It's also about unlearning some things that we are used to be doing for quite a bit of time. And the importance or significance of that comes in when my position is threatened, right? As I'm going through a transformation, I'm bound to fail at certain point in times. And if I don't have the right levers to support me through that, I tend to fall back upon my successful attributes or successful behaviors that I've practiced long time, right?
Yeah.
That's my default behavior. So I figured out that I need to unlearn those to be able to effectively moving from where I am to where I actually need to be, right? And that's the intent of this conversation that I wanted to put across, Tom.
Excellent. How did you get exposed to this?
So it was basically an experience that I had, right? For example, I was driving a scooter earlier, which has the handbrakes, correct? And I graduated like everyone into a motorcycle. So one day it was raining and I was driving my motorcycle, which I had learned newly, and suddenly a car passed by. And what happened was my default behavior, because I have driven my the scooter for a long time, was to hold the brakes with both hands. And in motorcycle, there is a brake at my leg, right?
Yeah.
Not both the brakes are in hands. So, but it was a default reaction, right? And I did get into accident there. Yes, I broke a few bones, but when I reflected upon it, that's when it struck me that yes, it doesn't necessarily mean if you have learned something new, you actually have forgotten something which has ingrained into your behavioral pattern, which is by default comes in.
Yeah.
And that comes in when my position is threatened, right? When I'm put in a place of uncomfortability. And that drove me to look at this from an entirely different perspective. And also my journey towards being a coach, right? When you are a coach, you want to be a coach, it's all about being there, not doing it, right? And if you have to be that person you want to be, it's not about learning, it's purely about unlearning your emotions, unlearning your diversions, unlearning your inhibitions, right? to be a coach, to present yourself for to the coachee who is in front of you.
Yeah.
So these experiences brought light on unlearning and the significance of it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking as you talk about this, maybe you've read the book by Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, but he talks about these habits and how really, as you mentioned, to replace a habit, you have to unlearn and then replace it with another habit.
Yes, so he does talk about a cycle of learning, unlearning, and relearning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important, and not many people give significance to, or even they don't realize that there is something they need to unlearn.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought to bring back that focus, and it's a process which runs in parallel with learning, right? You don't specifically learn something and go and figure out I'll unlearn this, right? It has to go in cycle that, okay, I need to learn this, I need to unlearn this. That's
Yeah.
when you effectively move.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you are transitioning, you're not transforming.
Yep.
Yeah, so with that, I just thought to talk about unlearning, and I call this as the secret ingredient to successful transformation, because not enough focus has been put on it till now. And I did do some research to understand, okay, is there some background, has there been some knowledge that is available on this one? It's not that everything I came up with. So I did find a research paper that was in Oxford, research.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go by definitions, normally we are hearing a lot of unlearning, as a coined word now. But if
Yeah.
you look at that research, I found that the first time that word was coined was in 1971. And
Wow.
at that point in time, Greeno talked about unlearning being viewed as a memory elimination in a system. That's one of the definitions that he came up with way back in 1971, right? And another definition he came up with, as I said, it's a gradual, continuous process simultaneously occurring with learning. It's not like it's an entirely new process that you're going to define, right? And slowly, as you consistently practice new behavior, the old one looks to fade away, right? That's another one. And the
Mm-hmm.
last one, which Greeno and Bennis came up with together, was it's a planned change, which means you need to be conscious about what you're trying to unlearn. Even though we say they happen parallelly, we need to consciously define what is that I am trying to unlearn. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You are only going through a learning process, right? For my
Mm-hmm.
example, if I want to be a coach, then my presence needs to be there. That means I need to unlearn the thoughts, random thoughts that keep coming to me, how I am able to not pay attention to it, and I am fully available for the coachee in front of me. So I need to be conscious, I need to be aware what is that I am trying to unlearn, right? So these are the definitions roughly I could find for unlearning, but I'm more combining all these three into the definition, saying it is a process of elimination, but it's a conscious process. It's not something that happens subconsciously or unconsciously.
And I think what you're talking about, kind of reminds me as a coach as well, that we need to be present with the person we're coaching or the team that we're coaching. And
Absolutely, yeah. Whether it's in a agile context or even a professional coaching context, you need to be fully available to the team when you are there. So your presence is what defines whether you are actively listening to the team, what is being told and what is being not told, right?
Mhm.
So that requires a lot of unlearning. It doesn't come easily just by learning something.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading something and they were talking about how we all need to be, and they used the term of the journalist. And the journalist was looking at, like you mentioned just recently there, what's not being said. Because sometimes what's not being said is really illuminating to the coach and really can shine a light on some of the things we need to focus on.
Absolutely. I think that's where the emotional intelligence comes in, right? So you are able to figure out what the energy shifts that happen in your coachee, and you're able to catch them. That enlightens the coachee to identify those areas whether he is consciously trying to avoid sometimes because of his inhibitions, or he is not conscious about it as well.
Yeah.
So moving on, I just thought about to talk about the learning stages, because if you need to understand how to unlearn, first we need to understand how to learn, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I refer to the 4 learning stages that Sir John Whitmore refers in his book for Coaching for Performance, right? That's one of the uh, best materials available on coaching, and he is the father of modern coaching as well. So the first stage of learning he talks about is unconscious incompetence, which means you don't know what you don't know. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, for example, till the time I thought or I got into that situation, I never knew there is something called as unlearning, right? I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's the first stage. And the second stage that we talk about is conscious incompetence. So when I knew that there is something called as unlearning, but I'm not aware what it is, I'm at a stage of conscious incompetence. And then the third one he talks about is conscious competence, which means I now know what unlearning exists and what it is. If I'm able to understand that and then start practicing it, I'm trying to build my competence consciously. And then as we go along, when it gets internalized and hard coded between my emotions and my mind, then it becomes my unconscious competence. And this is where our behaviors come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
We understand, learn new skills. When we practice, we build competencies. And when we build competencies and consistently practice them, master them, those become our behaviors. So when we have been working through a certain process, certain procedures or certain way of life, that becomes internalized, that becomes unconsciously our behavior. When we learn new skills, you are not actually forgetting this. This only gets shadowed for a certain point in time. But whenever you get threatened, this comes up automatically because that's your default fallback position, right? So now for you to unlearn, we need to first identify what is that you want to unlearn, which
Mm-hmm.
means you are bringing that competence from an unconscious state to a conscious state, right? We are talking about reverse progression now from the learning stages. So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to highlight these learning stages as well, right?
So as you're coaching a team and you first want to assess where they are as you think about something to unlearn, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So when you understand their behavior pattern that they have today, then you need to identify, or you will identify if you have focus on it. Okay, what is that they need to unlearn while they are learning new practices? What is it that need to focus on? And you as a coach bring out to the team, is this something you want to look at, in terms of unlearning? So I just wanted to throw some light on what is it that we want to unlearn, right? Whether it is competencies, whether it is procedures or norms or beliefs and behaviors. So whether one of these or all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
I finally got to a stage saying you have to unlearn everything. There is not one thing which you can leave, that I will not, and I will only unlearn the processes. What we generally see in coaching is, okay, you don't follow waterfall, you follow agile, which means you are only talking about procedures, frameworks, and norms. When you talk about technical competencies or technical coaching in agile, we talk about people moving to behavior driven development, test driven development.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, those are competencies again, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't change the belief system
Mm.
and the behaviors that are aligned to that belief system, you still will fall back. So there is no one thing that you can choose to unlearn. You have to unlearn everything.
So do you see that many times people try to just, like you mentioned, change from, oh, we're just going to add test-driven development, but don't understand the beliefs behind that?
Yes, absolutely. So the focus should not only be on practices. That's what I mean. The
Mm-hmm.
focus should be on what is driving an individual or a team to follow a certain practice. And if you are asking them to change, you need to change the belief system which is underneath that behavior.
Yeah.
Don't just change the practice.
Yep.
So it is not sustainable if you do that, right? Till you are there, they would do that. The moment you are out of the equation,
Mm-hmm.
then everything goes back normal.
Yeah.
And that's where you see that, so many big organizations talking about agile transformations, and they say we are not able to sustain, till the coaches are there, everything works fine. The moment a coach is out, my team is back to normal.
Yeah. Things explode.
Yeah. So I think that's where this makes a lot of significance, Tom.
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah. So I also thought about to throw some light on what barriers might come in, for people choose not to unlearn, right? So I am learning new things. I want to unlearn, but what is it that is stopping me, from unlearning? So the first thing I thought was the expertise. I have an expertise in a certain given area, and you are now asking me to move into a different zone. That means you are asking me to move out of my comfort zone. That makes me uncomfortable to unlearn. That is one of the things that I thought. The second one is personal motivation, and every time in every transformation we talk about this, what's in it for me as an individual, why I need to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another one I thought. Then the experience. Now this is very important because I've had, let's say, 20 years of experience, especially for leaders. We have leaders going through probably, certified agile leadership, certified PAL, or, there are whole lots of management 3.0. They attend 2 days of training and come back and they are now agile leaders. So it doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
right? You need to practice, you need to unlearn things, you need to identify what your current leadership model is and what you need to unlearn to be able to move to the new leadership model.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, focus mostly of transformation is on teams.
Yeah.
There is very little focus on leadership. What is it that they need to change?
Mm-hmm.
And it is their experience that stops them even accepting the fact that, okay, they need to change. And also, I think long-term success plays a big factor in unlearning, right? This
Yeah.
stops quite a bit of people because I have succeeded with this behavior. Why should I change?
Yep.
Right? So that's a big defining factor or a barrier for unlearning. And I also talked about lack of incentive. It resonates with personal motivation, but not every time. Somebody is motivated by an incentive, somebody is intrinsically motivated, but lack of incentive also might be a barrier for people to, you know not unlearn. And I also thought organizational complexity. How complex is your organization, right? In terms of procedures, processes, how you can disrupt a process. If you are not able to do that because of complexities, that might also force me to, fall back.
Yeah.
So these are some barriers I thought we should look at. This may not be the end of the world for barriers, but these are some things which I thought we could focus on.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like you mentioned that last one there, that sometimes organizations need to change how they're set up to support the changes.
Yes, correct. And that's why we talk about changing the structures to change the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
We say that, okay, change the structure to change the culture, because if you are in same structure, same hierarchy, how are you going to change the culture,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so then I also thought to put some light on facilitators. We also talked about barriers. Now if you are able to relate to one of these barriers, what is it that you could use potentially to be able to move ahead and unlearn what you want to, right? So it's also important to highlight that. So the first one I thought about is personal rotation, which means you are in a position of comfort I pick you from there and put you in a position of, discomfort, which means it's not your area of expertise. You almost are forced to unlearn, right? It's a positive facilitator when you move people from one team to a different team, because there is no expectation, or the level of expectation will come down the moment you move a person from a position of comfort or a position of expertise to a different position.
Mm-hmm.
And also is leadership support. Now this is very important, because if I am trying to unlearn, I'm expected to go through a certain state of you know performance degradation, or you could say skill level degradation. In that context, leadership support gives us a lot of positivity to continue to unlearn, right? And fail safe environment, it's very important. If I am trying to unlearn something and learn something new, it's I am bound to fail. So if the leadership and the organization is willing to look at that as a learning rather than as a failure, I think will play a big role in it, in them being able to unlearn. And process disruption also is a great facilitator. If you continue with the existing processes, there is no way that I'm going to unlearn, right? If you disrupt the process and give me a open ground to play with, probably that would be a contributor as well. I also thought organizational awareness, how a lot of times the awareness about transformation itself is very low. You don't communicate enough. For me, over communication is okay, it's good, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
people may find it difficult, it's okay, but you are at least not communicating short. So creating awareness in the organization about what is that we don't want people to do, or what is that people should stop doing, I
Yeah.
think will also give that positivity to unlearn. And the last but not the least is the managerial turnover. It's a big differentiator, I guess. Means I can even think, I'm not sure how true it is, but when I heard about ing being going through transformation, the one
Mm-hmm.
thing they did, as I told, was that they did not allow the same leader to be in the same position,
Ah.
which means they created a disruption at a leadership level to remove that comfortability factor and create vulnerability. So when you are vulnerable, you are
Mm.
ready to accept vulnerability down the chain, right? So
Interesting.
that's, I think, is a very important factor for unlearning.
Definitely.
So with all this being said, and being a coach, I thought there is no framework that is currently available for people to look at. So from my perspective, I just thought to give a broad framework for people to look at, and how to identify something or a process behind unlearning.
Mm-hmm.
So what I thought is, the first one is discover. So try to identify what is that thing that you need to unlearn, and this can be progressive. Suppose if you are in a position of leadership wherever you are today and you are aspiring to be in certain position, then you should identify, if I have to be there, what is it that I need to unlearn? While I am learning, it's very clear what I need to learn, right? For a progressive career, But what is it that I need to unlearn so that I can exhibit all the behaviors required to that position? So discovery is first phase. Then I thought defining how, right? You are defined what and define how you are going to do it. And that would be a great place, how to execute that plan, and then start practicing it, right? You practice day in, day out till that your competence moves from conscious to unconscious competence,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you need to go through that path. So practice it regularly so that you don't even remember that behavior anymore, right? And partner, the support system is very much needed, because there will be points in time where you may not get organizational support, but whom are you partnering with in your journey of unlearning, right? So this is a broad framework or coaching model that I follow for my unlearning. I just thought to share, probably it could help others as well.
Definitely. I can see this being very helpful for many of the coaches and the people who practice in the agile space, because like you mentioned, there's a lot of things we need to unlearn and be more broad about all the different pieces, like you mentioned, because I think, you talked about it. We focus on some of those practices, but we need to kind of step back and use this model that you've outlined here to really understand there's more to it than just the practices.
Yes. So I think that is what I wanted to bring about, and bring focus back on unlearning as well, along with learning, because there is excellent amount of focus on learning. Everybody talks about all the frameworks. When you especially talk about agile transformation, you have people talking about scrums, kanbans, xps, and test driven developments and everything, scaled agile, and whatever you can name it. But there is hardly any focus, I think zero focus on what is that you stop doing.
Excellent. Well, Nivarti, you've shared a lot with us. Do you have any final thoughts in closing?
The only thought I have is, your learning is never complete till you unlearn. That's it.
Thank you. We appreciate you being on the summit.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity, Tom.